The Secretary will proceed.
Fourth additional reference of business, message from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 18 November 2019, it passed House Number 5437 entitled An Act Extending the Availability of the 2019 Appropriations for Maintenance and Other Operating Expenses and Capital Outlays to December 31, 2020, amending for the purpose Section 65 of the General Provisions of the Republic Act Number 11260, the General Appropriations Act of Fiscal Year 2019, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
Referred to the Committee on Finance.
Committee report. Committee report number 22, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation on Senate number 1174, with Senators Pimentel III and Marcos as authors thereof, entitled An Act Amending Section 185 of the Omnibus Election Code as amended by abolishing the printing of the voters' information and instruction sheet, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate number 1005, sponsor Senator Marcos.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we resume the discussions of the budget. I so move, Mr. President.
Hearing no objection, so considered.
Mr. President, we'd like to call the resource persons back from the Philippine Sports Commission, as well as our chairperson, Senator Bongo. While we're waiting for them to enter the Senate premises, Senate session hall,
Yes.
may we ask for a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended. Ano, mix.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resumed.
Mr. President, may we resume the discussions on the budget or consideration of the budget of the Philippine Sports Commission. Recognize Senator Go and once again our dear minority floor leader, Senator Franklin M. Drilon, to interpret.
Senator Go, the sponsor, and the minority leader, Senator Frank Relon, is recognized.
Mr. President, the next series of questions that I will be asking, Mr. President, will be on matters affecting FISGOC, Philippine Olympic Committee, and the Philippine Sports Commission. In our discussion yesterday, the sponsoring senator, Senator Go, requested that we suspend our rules in order to allow the representatives of FISGOC, of the PSC, and the Philippine Olympic Committee to directly answer the questions that we raise. As correctly, the sponsor was not familiar, was not yet there, and had no participation in the setup of the organization, and therefore has requested that the questions be directly answered by the resource persons. We would wish to manifest, Mr. President, that we have no objection to the suspension of the rules to enable this representation to address the resource persons directly.
Mr. President, with all due respect to other members of this body, I maintain that I am here to sponsor is the budget of the PSC for 2020. I am not here to lawyer or defend the FISGOC. And as I have stated earlier, the FISGOC, led by its chairman speaker, Alan Peter Cayetano, is here and they are ready and willing to answer and address any issues raised during the last hearing. It is important for the people, the athletes, and the games to clear up matters brought about in this chamber. Thus, I ask the body to allow the speaker to deliver a short manifestation on the matter. Thus, we ask the Committee on Rules to suspend the rules for this purpose. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, I don't think that's proper. We are now on the period of interpellation of the budget, and having the speaker, with all due respect, address the body when we have our agreement, is that he is the resource persons that we will ask questions, and therefore addressing the body is a little is not proper. So we have agreed, we have manifested that we can direct our questions to the resource persons, namely FISGOC, namely PSC, namely POC. But they should respond to our questions, not take the floor on a manifestations. That's our submission, Mr. President.
Well, yes, the connotation of addressing the body is completely different from answering any of the questions. So, the gentleman from Iloilo may pose questions to the sponsor, and if the sponsor wishes a resource person, and in this case, particularly the Speaker of the House, to answer, we may do so. And then, therefore, he may be able to express what he wants to say
Mr. President, with the
at that
permission-
time. But the correct procedure is that the sponsor answers questions from the interpolator.
Before that, Mr. President, may I be recognized to make the motion to suspend the rules?
The
It's
majority
only the
leader is
majority leader
recognized.
Under the
Yes.
Committee on Rules. Mr. President, under Section 21 of our rules, or 121,
121.
rather, Section 121, the rules shall be suspended only when a motion is presented by the Committee on Rules to the effect and approved by the majority of senators present, there being a quorum. Mr. President, therefore, I move that we suspend the rules to allow some of our resource persons to answer the queries of our dear colleague from Iloilo. I so move, Mr.
The
President.
suspension of the rules that you are proposing and your motion is limited to the budget of the Philippine
Yes.
Sports Commission.
Only
and will
for the Philippine
terminate
Sports
after we
Commission.
terminate the
Yes.
budget.
Yes,
All
Mr.
right?
President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Rules are suspended.
So, Mr. President,
Yes.
may I address this question to to Mr. Ramirez, William Ramirez, as the is he the chair,
PSC chairman,
PSC chairman?
Butch Ramirez.
Mr. Ramirez, how many games will be sponsored? I don't know if the word sponsored, but how many games will be? How many games will take place? How many events or sports events will
There-
happen?
There are 56 events.
So can we speak closer to the microphone?
There are 56 sports and 530 sporting events, Your Honor.
So there are 56 sports now. How many of these 56 sports will be held in the new facility in Clark?
One is track and field,
Can you do it slowly, please, so that we
track
can
and
take
field,
note?
and there are a lot of events there.
Y-
Then
y-
swimming,
I'm sorry?
swimming and track and field.
Swimming, okay,
And track and field,
huh?
track and field.
Track and field, swimming, what else?
These are the two main
Oh.
events, but out of swimming, there are a few events like diving, backstroke, other aquatic sports, Your Honor. The same with track and field, there are 28 events. When you say track and field, it involves 100-meter dash, 400-meter distance running, 1,000 hurdle, pentathlon, running.
Okay, continue, please. So of the 56 sports events, exactly 2 will be held in the new Clark City Facilities Stadium.
Yes, Your Honor.
By the way, how much capital outlay do we have for the Clark Sports Stadium?
I cannot answer that, Your Honor. I cannot answer that because it was BCD who constructed it.
Sorry,
I cannot answer that question
because?
because it was BCD who constructed the structures.
Okay, we have asked the sponsor of this previously. Can we just reconfirm, Mr. Sponsor, that 11.013 billion was the capital out, or sorry, 9.5 billion was the capital outlay used for the construction of the facilities in New Clark City?
Yes, Your Honor.
9.5.
Yes, Your Honor. 9.5, 544 million.
Thank you very much, sir. I go back to Mr. Ramirez. For 9.5 billion of a sport facility, we exactly have 2 sports events that will be hosted in Clark. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, could we have held track and field in some other facility around Manila?
Oh, we have the 85 years old track and field in Rizal Memorial Sports Complex.
Okay.
And we are rehabilitating, refurbishing the whole area.
Which
That
one?
was the very place where we held Asian Games, Southeast Asian Games in the past, sir.
Okay. So you can refurbish and put to international standards the track and field oval in Rizal Memorial Coliseum. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
But instead of doing that, we spent 9.5 billion for the sports stadium in Clark.
The way I understand, sir, the structure, based on the Republic Act 6847, it was stated there that the Philippines have hosted the Far Eastern Games in the past, 4 Southeast Asian Games, and there is a paragraph there that we are encouraged to host even Olympic Games.
Yes.
And that's the very reason why the idea of putting up perhaps of that big structure, international capacity and setting, because maybe of that purpose.
Yes. But again, I ask the question. We could have put the track and field, how do you call that? Track and field, anong tawag doon? Oval. The track and field oval in the Rizal Memorial Coliseum to international standards. Would you agree? That's
Sir,
only an engineering issue.
Rizal Memorial's track and field is almost 84 years old, and the IA, International Track and Field Association, have modes of certifying it, and the place may not be of standard now based on the accreditation form.
Okay. So it is impossible from the engineering point of view to upgrade the Rizal Memorial.
It is possible,
Track and
sir.
Field. I'm sorry?
It is possible, Your Honor.
It is possible. Okay. And how much would it have cost to put the Rizal Memorial Track and Field up to international standard?
I really don't know at the moment, Your Honor.
500 million, just the oval. I'm just speaking of picking figures randomly. You have been in sports for quite a period of time. Can you just give us a ballpark figure, without binding you to this,
Okay.
as to how much it would have cost to upgrade the Rizal Memorial Oval to international standards acceptable to the International Track and Field Federation?
I cannot be specific on
Yes.
the amount, but
Yes.
if you put track and field on international standard, you have to spend more than 200 million on the track, and you have to spend $1 billion in the bleacher, which will include capacity of 40, maybe 50. But because if I'm going to state the amount, Your Honor, I have to involve the architect, the
Yes.
engineer, the accountant.
We fully understand that. We are not asking you to make a precise assessment, but you're saying round figures off the top of your head without being bound by it, in your view as being an experienced, somebody who's been exposed to sports, for 200 million, you could put the track and field oval to international standards, and for 1 billion pesos, you could have enough seats in the stadium. That's 1.2 billion. Is that correct, sir?
Maybe yes, maybe no, sir.
What do you mean maybe yes, maybe no, sir? Do not try to be a smart
Because
aleck,
I cannot-
Mr. Ramirez. You are answering questions on the budget. Do not give me that. Do not give this chamber maybe yes, maybe no. We are asking you we're very general. Just an overall view, an overall assessment. Nothing of the nuts and bolts construction that would give us a precise cost, just a general and cost. And you were saying 200 million to refurbish the track and field to international standards, and 1 billion for the stadium. That's why I am reconfirming that you are saying 1.2 billion to refurbish the track and field, and to refurbish the track and field to international standards, and a Coliseum, Rizal Memorial Coliseum at 1 billion. You can have that Coliseum.
That's my assumption, Your Honor.
Your assumption. As against, okay, yeah, that's good enough for us. We just want to establish that on the record, because 9.5 billion was spent for the track and field stadium in Clark.
With the permission of the Minority Leader, interjection from the sportswoman of the Senate.
Yes, with pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Nothing about the budget, Mr. President, but I'd just like to put on record, because I've run on that new track oval in the new Clark City a couple of times. I've also trained as a national team athlete, as a volleyball player when I was 16 years old in the now 84-year-old Rizal Memorial. And I am personally aware, because I followed the construction, that the new Clark City Stadium has a Class 1 international certification. To be able to get that, aside from the main track oval, so if you have a photo, you can see it from an aerial view, in what looks like an empty parking lot is now another track oval, because you need a warm-up track beside the main track so that people can practice before their event. And then in addition to that, under the bleachers, there's an 80-meter track so that they can do their last-minute warm-up. So to be able to do that in the Rizal Memorial Complex, they would have to demolish either the multipurpose building
They have to
or
demolish-
other structures.
They have to demolish LaSalle.
I won't
Yes,
comment,
we
I won't
accept
comment
that.
anymore. So I'm just putting that into perspective,
yes.
because that was open space. And one more thing, as an athlete, that I can't even imagine, how it is to be a professional athlete. I was only a university athlete, and for a short time in the Philippine team. But aside from running around and around the track oval, the new Clark City allows them to run in a park-like environment outside, because there's a river, it looks like a park. It looks like you're in nature, as opposed to running in, sadly, what maybe we can rehabilitate one day, Rojas Boulevard. So that's the main difference that I'd like to put on the floor as somebody who appreciates the new Clark City. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the intervention, Senator Cayetano. Our question was precisely how much we would have spent to place Rizal Memorial Coliseum in the standard at par with what we built in Clark. That's all that we're saying. And the response is for approximately 1.2 billion pesos, we could have approximated in Rizal Coliseum what we achieved as a Class A track and field stadium in Clark. But that's all a policy issue. We wanted to spend 9.5 billion. Policy issue. The government wanted to spend that, We're just pointing out that 1.2 billion could have been would have been enough to put and upgrade Rizal Memorial Coliseum. So let's put that aside, and we'll go to the next topic. Let's go to this FISGOC Foundation. May I know from Speaker Cayetano what the FISGOC Foundation is all about?
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, Mr. President, Mr. Minority Leader. Tama po ang Senate President that it's not appropriate to make a manifestation because I'm not a present member. But may I make a 2-minute opening statement, which we usually allow resource speakers to do.
No
To answer
objection, sir.
Thank
No
you.
objection.
May I start by the book of Galatians telling us that kung anong ating itatanim, yan po ang ating aanihin. And I'd like to thank the Minority Leader and the whole Senate. Legitimate questions po ito. As you said po, policy questions. And as you said po, sa dyaryo naman nababasa to lahat, but it has to be articulated in an institution. And I guess nakakailang sa ilang kongresista na tanungin ako as Speaker sa House. So that's why I voluntarily came to the Senate, despite the fact it's never been done. But to my mind, sir, the athletes, the country, the SEA Games, our people, are more important than protocol or than interparliamentary courtesy or interchamber courtesy. So I'm more than willing to answer these questions. I was just reminded of this story where a man spread stories about another man, and when he came to see that man, after finding it was not true or that it was exaggerated, this man said, sorry. And the man said, don't say sorry, go to the highest mountain, get a pillow, throw out all the feathers, then come back. So he came back and said, do you forgive me now because I did what you say? He said, go back and pick all those feathers, then I'll forgive you. And said, why should I pick up all those feathers? Because what you have spread is already all around. It cannot be put back. And that's why I thank the Minority Leader, because when these rumors were spread in the newspapers by different people, hindi na kayang ibalik eh. So this is a good opportunity for us to answer it. So una-una, why are we hosting SEA Games? Well, a multi-sport game like this, Mr. Speaker, I'll go to the foundation right away. The multi-sport event like this is a matter of national pride. It focuses on our people. It focuses on our culture. It benefits us in tourism, foreign investment. Sports tourism alone is $620 billion industry, which we want to tap into. So question, are we spending a lot of money? Yes. Is it excessive? No. Is it overpriced? No. Singapore spent $15 billion in hosting alone in
With all due respect, we never said that this was overpriced.
Yes, sir. I'm referring to the news report,
So that's
sir.
why may we request that the honorable speaker respond to the questions that we raise,
sir.
so that we don't go astray
Yes.
in our discussion.
So I'll just go to that because these are questions that, Mr. Speaker, that the Minority Leader either asked or, as you said, news reports. But just one more minute with your
Yes,
indulgence.
please.
No? So Malaysia spent $7 billion on hosting alone, $15 billion in sports development, and $1.5 billion to upgrade the facilities. Our SEA Games will be the biggest in history, the most number of sports. We expect 1 billion viewers. The cauldron that has been put in the spotlight is cheaper than what was built by Singapore in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, 63 million. And yung sa Singapore po, hindi po national artist. Why? Because the cauldron po is the symbol. It's not one of the symbols. It's the symbol of the games, whether it's Olympic Games or SEA Games, and it's a work of art. So while some people may see a cauldron, we see a monument, we see the athletes, we see the burning flames that represent hope and the fighting spirit. So we think it was just appropriate in the same manner that the Senate yesterday moved to increase the budget of CPP by 40 million to be 50 million para sa Philharmonic. It's the same manner we support that, and we will support that in the BICAM. So to your question, Mr. President, why a foundation? Because it's the SEA Games Federation that owns the games. And all SEA Games are run by foundations. So in the IOC rules and the SEA Game Federation rules, it's either the Olympic Committee, but they will form a foundation that will be the organizing committee, or it could be a multi-stakeholder. But in all games, so in 1991, we had MANSOC, which was a foundation. And if I'm not mistaken, at that time, sir, you were Secretary of Justice. And in 2005, I think, sir, you were Senate President, we had PhilSoc. It was also a foundation. In Singapore, they had SingSoc. In Malaysia, they had MASOC. So yung OC po dun, sir, is always organizing committee. So thank you, sir, for asking that, because that's been a lingering question. But we had no choice. If we don't want a foundation, we cannot host the games.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So the next question is, who are the incorporators of the foundation and who are its trustees?
A minute, I'm just getting the articles of
1
incorporation.
minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended.
I'm ready, Mr. Senate President.
Session resumed.
So, Senate President, we decided to incorporate upon the suggestion of POC President Peping Cuangco at the time and Vice President Roma Santa, who was advising me at the time. And there was question whether Chairman Butch and I could be incorporators because we were in government at that time. So for expediency, we used as incorporators the people who were already involved in organizing the game. So John Patrick Gregorio, who was at that time POC SecGen and then later on Director General of the SEA Games. Victorico Vargas, who at that time was already POC President. He replaced President Peping. If not, it would have been President Peping who would have been in the incorporator. Ramon Tatum Susara, who was instrumental in making the master plan and is now the COO of the games. Donaldo Caringal, who is also part of the organizing committee. He's deputy director, and he's experienced in organizing volleyball, international volleyball tournaments, together with Mr. Susara. Tomas T. Corasco Jr., who I think is also here and is a executive director and is an old hand and has much experience in sports. Same with Mr. Edgar Picson. Then two of my staff who were helping me there, Dexter Estacio and Monica Ann Mitra. And there was a minimum requirement by the SEC of 1 million pesos, so we raised that amount through private sources to be able to incorporate. From there, Mr. Senate President, Mr. Minority Leader, sir, we formed the board passed a resolution forming a executive committee where, according to the master plan, yours truly is the chairperson. Then we have two vice chairperson or co-vice chairpersons. At that time, it was Ricky Vargas, then replaced by Congressman Bambol Tolentino, and then Chairman Butch. But so that the vision and the compromise that was met with Kong Peping would be met, that the board be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 POC, 1/3 PSC, 1/3 government representatives led by myself. So the other board members are from Commissioner Agustin, sir, from PSC. Then from POC, we also have Chairman Steve Hontiveros, who's now the chairman of POC. We had the SecGen now, Attorney Edwin Gastanes. Then we have GSIS Chairman Rolly Makasaet, who's also a member. And because we intended at the start to have almost all games in Clark, BCDA President Vince Dizon. And of course, Ramon Susara, because of he's the COO. So that is what the board passed as a resolution, Your Honor.
Yes. Under the articles and bylaws of the corporation, the Board of Trustees shall elect from among its members the following officers: the president, one or more vice presidents, a treasurer, and a secretary. But what you have enumerated, Mr. President, are the members of the executive committee.
Yes.
And when were they elected, sir?
They were elected by the board in accordance with a resolution that they passed.
All right. When were they elected?
Let me get the date, Your
Yes.
Honor, Mr. President.
And maybe you can also get, if there are minutes of this election?
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
please.
We have a board secretary and we'll give you all
Yes.
the documents.
If
sir.
we can have that for our perusal?
We'll comply, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, sir.
By the way, Mr. President, Your Honor, we had to do that anyway because for the SEA Games...
Even after the SEA Games,
Yes.
if you want.
But
Wait.
the SEA Games Federation needed also that. So we have all that, Mr. President, and we'll comply
Yes.
with it.
As I said, we're not in a hurry. We can have the documents
Thank
after
you.
the SEA Games so that we don't interrupt the efforts of the committee to prepare for the games. Could you also give us, even after the games, a copy of the general information sheet? Because we could not find one on file in the SEC.
By tomorrow or Thursday, Your Honor, Mr. President, we will submit.
We can have it after the
Yes,
games.
thank you.
Just to show that, we're not in a hurry about this, Mr. President. Now, can you help us understand the relations, the respective roles of the various organizations in the holding of the SEA Games? Allow us to understand, Mr. President, and for the good speaker, to spread into the record so that we will understand the relationship between FISCOG, the PSC, and the Philippine Olympic Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President, to the Honorable Minority Leader. So, under the SEA Games Federation rules, which also have to comply with the International Olympic Committee rules, there has to be a juridical person or juridical entity. That's why we put up the foundation. Now, under the SEA Games rule, it's either the POC or the Olympic Committee of the host country or a multi-stakeholder group that will run the games.
Under the Southeast Asian Games Charter, there is a National Olympic Committee, which is the official body in its own country for all matters connected with the Southeast Asian Games.
Yes,
is
sir.
that correct? No.
But there's an or, sir. Or it could be any other body agreed upon.
All right. Yes, that's under the charter. Under the law creating the Philippine Sports Commission, however, the POC is designated as the National Olympic Committee, which POC is described as autonomous in character. Let me read Section 12 of the law. The Philippine Olympic Committee, which is affiliated with the with the International Olympic Committee, is hereby recognized as the National Olympic Committee for the Philippines. It is autonomous in character. The Philippine Olympic Committee shall maintain its primary responsibility for activities pertaining to the country's participation in the Olympic Games Asian Games, Southeast Asian Games, and other international athletic competitions in accordance, respectively, with the rules and regulations of the International Olympic Committee, the Olympic Council of Asia, the Southeast Asian Games Federation, and other international bodies. So, may we ask, this is the role of the Olympic Committee as defined by our own laws. So what is the role now of the POC given this mandate, given under the law? What is the role of the Olympic Committee, of the Philippine Olympic Committee vis-a-vis the holding of this games?
Yes. That's a very good question, Mr. President, and thank you for this opportunity na linawin yan. Under the SEA Games Federation rules, the organizing committee, the Olympic Committee can delegate, but the responsibility of running the games remains with them. So it's consistent with our Republic Act 6847. What so happened here, sir, is that when President Peping was president of POC, they appealed to the president who canceled the games because of Marawi and because of lack of material time to prepare, because we were approached in 2016. This was supposed to be the turn of Brunei Jerusalem to run the games. And usually we give the country 4 years. So in 2016, we were approached, but because of Marawi, we said no. At that time, if I'm not mistaken, our majority leader, Mitsubiri, tried to meet with the executive secretary and the POC to iron out. And the POC cannot run the games itself because they do not have the money for it. And the recent trends in Malaysia and Singapore is that it's the government that spends, but it is government official who chairs. So when it did not push through, a last-minute appeal by President Peping and Vice President Rumasanta to me, I brought them to the executive secretary and to the chairman of the PSC, and the agreement was that the president will only approve if it will be a tripartite organizing committee, wherein it will be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So in one sense, POC and PSC, who have the technical expertise of running, will have 2/3 of the vote. But in the other sense, because government is spending, so my group, I wasn't planning to run at that time, sir. There wasn't a change in speakership at the time. So as chairman of the committee, as Secretary of the Foreign Affairs, and kakatapos lang po natin i-host yung 50th ng ASEAN, it was an extension of our diplomacy through sports. So kami naman ni Chairman Butch would have 2/3. So ang ginawa po namin, if you look at the organizational setup, which we followed from the Asian Games standard, which is much higher than the SEA Games standard, ang POC po ay nakakalat po yung kanilang mga tao sa operation ng games. So PSC POC actually dominates the organization po, and actually our directors or FAs are here, and some of the sport managers, and even, sir, the head of our athletes union, he's here po today.
Yeah, okay. Now, there is a MOA entered into between the Philippine Sports Commission and the FISGOC.
Yes, sir.
And the Philippine Sports Commission is supposed to provide financial support to FISCOG.
If I may explain the history, sir.
No, just answer
Yes, sir.
first.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so there is a provision there that FISCOG, that PSC should provide
Yes.
financial support to FISCOG.
Pursuant to MC 56, sir.
Fine. How much is the financial assistance to date?
Sir, this is the history.
No, please answer. You know,
Yes.
with all due respect to the good speaker, we're just asking the question, how much is it? And then you can explain later
Okay,
on.
sir. Right now, it's 1.5 billion. We wanted 0. Lately, sir, walang gustong mag-organize na game na disenteng tao because sa demandahan after the games. So if the budget was passed in 2019 and it's no one's fault that there was a difference of opinion between the Senate and the House, na-delay ho ng todo yung budget. So instead of the Department of Foreign Affairs going into MOA with the different agencies like what we did in ASEAN to bid out the whole 7.5 billion, na-delay po ito. So we had to raise private money and pati po yung pasweldo until today, zero po ang nanggagaling sa gobyerno. That's all through sponsorship. So what happened when I presented this to the cabinet, on my motion with authorization of the board, we asked the President to allow the DBM procurement service to take over the whole 6 billion budget. And this 6 billion budget, which was initially 7.5, pinocure ng lahat ng kaya ng DBM. Yung hindi na po kaya, financial assistance sa POC. Precisely because we did not want to accept financial assistance. But I think 3-4 weeks ago, when everyone was saying hindi matutuloy ang games unless FISGOC accepts, we accepted 1.5, a little bit over 1.5 B, and we have the breakdown and willing to submit to you, Your Honor.
So, may I ask, Mr. President, can we cite a provision of law which is the basis for the transfer to a private, non-stock, non-profit corporation of government funds in the magnitude of now 1.5 billion?
We have a COA circular that addresses all financial assistance. This is being done by DSWD. It's being done by PSC does it regularly by giving financial assistance to POC and the NSAs. So
Yes,
this has been, for example, Mr. President, PSC is mandated to plan, implement, oversee integrated amateur sports promotion and development in coordination with various sectors, including, among others, POC, the National Sports Association, and public and private school, government corporations, local government, armed forces of the Philippines, and other organizations, RA 6847. Then there are other parts of the law, but it is all covered by a circular by COA, and the chairman and I, Chairman Butch and I, personally went to a conference with COA to look at that circular, and we were assured that, informally, of course, that as long as we follow the government auditing rules, it is allowed by law.
All right. Under the memorandum of agreement, can we describe FISCOC to be providing services to the Sports Commission? They provide services for a fee?
Actually, sir, it's a different kind of animal because in one sense, PSC and POC are part of FISGOC. But in another sense, it's PSGOC, it's PSC and POC who are in charge of training and taking care of the NSA. So
Well,
actually, sir, dual yung kanilang role. But since the Senate saw fit to put the budget of the SEA Games under PSC, so PSC is the chief implementer of the budget. So FISGOC simply made the master plan and the policy, and then PSC was to bid, but they did not have material time. They did not have enough people, enough procurement lawyers. That's why we moved it to the DBM.
Okay, except for the 1.5 billion.
Even the 1.5 billion, until the DBM said that they cannot accommodate us anymore.
They said they cannot accommodate
Yes.
you, so that was given to FISCOC.
First to POC, and
Wait,
POC said they cannot also accommodate us
Yes.
because they were already procuring sports equipment, and then they were busy with the NSAs and
Okay.
training.
So this was transferred to FISCOC,
Yes.
$1.5 billion.
Yes. What has been dispersed, Mr. President, Your Honor, is 700 million.
Okay,
This is quite a recent development.
Okay, so 700, what was moved was 1.5
Yes.
billion. What was disbursed so far is 700 million.
What we received is 700. Yes. Initially, Mr. President, we did not want to receive any government money. So we created a separate amount, and so far, what has been transferred to FISGOC is only 700 million.
Fine, 700 million was transferred to FISCOG. And what was this amount used for? This is not a small money. This is 700 million. May we know what it was used for?
Where's the start? Just a 1 minute.
1 minute suspension.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Session suspended.
Tsaka yung buong 1.5, di ba? And lahat yan according to the master plan. Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resumed.
Mr. President, I'm asking them to separate the 700 million, but of the 1.5 billion, broadcast content and service requirement is about 135 million. Venue-related expenses, 490 million. This includes Athletes Village Dining Hall, 19 million. Venue rentals, judges and media towers, fencing and crowd barriers, IT and various venue, because, Mr. President, under the agreement with the SEA Games, we're supposed to air at least 11 games live. But we decided to air 22 games live because the difference was only 30 million and we have a potential 1 billion viewers. Game time service requirements, 330 million. Talent fees, 66 million. Ocular site visits, 360,000. Workshop and training, 87 million. Meetings, which includes delegation registration, competition venue managers meeting, and third SEA Games Federation meeting, 13 million. Special events, which includes the meeting of the chef mission, the mission, 7 million. Medical game time requirements, 21 million. Educational, technical, production reinforcement of sports entertainment. Games for tests, security and manpower, supplies, the cauldron, additional furniture and fixtures, and FISGOC operating expenses except for personal services. No, not including. We'll give you a copy if you so desire, Mr. President.
So that totals 700 million as disbursements? Or is that the 1.5
I
billion?
read the 1.5 billion, then
Okay.
beside it po, yung na-disperse na.
Sorry?
What I read, sir, was the whole 1.5 billion
That's what I recall,
is to be
yes.
transferred.
Uh-huh.
Then I will submit to you side by side what was dispersed in the 700 million.
All right. Can I ask, can I address a question to Mr. Ramirez? Mr. Ramirez, could Philippine Sports Commission have performed the task assigned to PhilSoc? I'm sorry, PhilGOC, sorry. Could PSC have performed the task assigned to PhilGOC?
Yes, Your Honor, but allow me to speak.
Yes, did you say yes?
Yes, Your
You
Honor.
could have performed it.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, now,
But we cannot do that without POC.
I'm sorry?
Yes, but we cannot perform that without the Philippine Olympic Committee.
Without the what, I'm sorry?
The Philippine Olympic Committee,
Without the Philippine Olympic Committee.
because they take charge of the technical aspect.
Yes. So you could have performed all these tasks with close coordination with the Philippine Olympic Committee.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In other words, the activities performed by FISCO could have been done by you as long as the Philippine Olympic Committee was there.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, the services of FISGOC was engaged by the Philippine Sports Committee without a public bidding.
Your Honor, will you please repeat, Your Honor?
The services secured by Philippine Sports Commission from the FISCOG was not a result of any public bidding.
Your Honor, in normal condition, we do observe procurement law and government accounting laws. But the situation was entirely different. The Philippine Olympic Committee leadership was in chaos. There was a delay of budget from the government, and the transactions of MOA between PSC, POC was big problem, then FISGO. And the time is so tight that we cannot observe the 2 months procurement law. And the normal condition, since we're allowed by law to extend financial assistance to the Philippine Olympic Committee, FISGO, we usually do that, Your Honor.
All right. Now, when the FISCOG utilized the 700 million in accordance with activities that the good Speaker Cayetano enumerated, was bidding conducted?
I will leave that matter to the FISGO, Your Honor, because the situation, we maintain...
Can you
as-
answer me, just an answer which I will understand. The question is very simple. When disbursement of the 700 million was made for services, for equipment, for whatever, was there a public bidding?
We expected the FISCO to observe that because the financial assistance is subject for liquidation, Your Honor.
Yes. So would you know if in fact, okay, just I repeat the question. Give me one example of the disbursement made, say, for uniforms. Was it disbursed for uniforms?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, was there a bidding done
Yes,
by
Your Honor.
FISCOG for uniforms?
Yes, Your Honor.
In all other purchases of services or equipment,
Yes, Your Honor.
the bidding requirement was complied with?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. These were, now, you commit, of course, that this is subject to COA audit afterwards?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Yeah.
Mr. President, can I just clarify that there was public bidding, but by the DBM? So anything that was done by the DBM or PSC, there was public bidding. Anything done by the POC and FISGOC, we followed the procurement law, but the procurement law, the applicable law is for financial assistance. So we follow industry practice and other practices like the 3 quotation rule, Mr. President,
Well,
just to
yes.
set the record straight. But the
Yes.
uniforms were bidded out by the DBM, sir.
Okay, fine. I was just citing as an example the purchase of uniform, because it is generally known as an item that any organization would engage where in this kind of activities. So, can the gentleman speaker again repeat for the record the distinction between what was granted to the what was purchased by FISCOG and the Philippine Olympic Committee on the other?
So for the record, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, Mr. Minority Leader, we have a procurement law, Republic Act 9184. And all entities concerned will follow and follows that law. But under the said law, there are different modes of procurement. And one of that is public bidding.
Yes.
So we sent the whole 6 billion initially to DBM,
DBM,
for
yes.
public bidding. And everything that they could comply with given the limited time and their limited personnel, they bidded out. Initially, yung hindi po nila na bid went back to, so PSC did not transfer but gave it as FA to POC. So POC is following the procurement law but not necessarily public bidding, precisely because even DBM cannot do it given the time. So there are alternatives, there are exceptions under the procurement law, section 4.5 of the RIR, provided such assistance is within the mandate of the agency. However, they are still subject to guidelines by government procedure, particularly during the submission of liquidation. So we have looked at the past COA issuances and liquidation to make sure that we are compliant with it, Mr. President.
All right. I assume that is a matter for COA to look at the time of the when the audits are being done.
Yes, Mr. President. But we also hired a private, a independent auditor for all the private funds that will come into FISGOC, so that there will be full transparency, Mr. President and Your Honor, the gentleman from Iloilo.
Thank you very much. Other than the 700 million that was disbursed, are there other disbursements in the coming days that
Yes, sir.
will happen?
What I read a while ago, sir, was the 1.5 billion, Mr.
Okay.
President. So,
You expect that the 1.5
Yes.
billion be totally disbursed?
more or less, sir. So we're working it out with PSC, unless PSC is able to, unless there are some that do not need procurement in the manner provided by law that can be handled by PSC.
When was the 700 million transferred, or 1.5 billion transferred to the FISGOC? FISGOC, I'm sorry.
Only this month, sir, but I'll get the financial statement so that you will have the dates, because it's in checks deposited on a separate, precisely because, Mr. President and Your Honor, we did not want to accept it. But at the last minute, they said that we don't have any choice. So I'll give you a either financial statement or the dates of the check, Mr. President, if the gentleman from Iloilo, the minority leader, will allow.
Yes, please. If we can have it now. Is it available?
Yeah. We do have our own document with dates, but if you want the official bank certificate, we have to procure. We have to get
I don't
it from
need
the
an
bank.
official
Yes.
bank certificate. I can
Yes, sir.
rely on the certificates
Yes.
that
Yes.
yes, prepared internally.
Yes.
Right.
So we will submit.
So yes. Can we ask the page to? Thank you.
Mr. President, may I just manifest that that's from the PSC
Yes.
accounting. So we have
Okay.
to reconcile with the FISGOC accounting, but there should not be any mistakes there because PSC keeps tight ship under Chairman Butch.
I'm sorry, but I did not get very clearly the earlier answer to our question of what regulation allows financial or material assistance to FISGOC as a beneficiary. Just for the record again.
May we submit it to Your Honor? We have the COA circular, and it does cite provisions of law. I just don't have it right now. And under that circular, it does allow financial assistance to non-government organizations and private entities under I have the circular, sir. So it cites Section 23, Article 2 of the Constitution that provides states shall encourage non-governmental, community-based, or sectoral organizations to promote the welfare of the nation. It cites Section 34 for LGUs. And it provides the allowing to extend funds to non-government organizations and or people's organizations to provide control and guidance in granting utilization management of such funds. COA Circular 95-003, 96003, dated February 15, 1995, February 27, 1996, respectively. However, in 2002, there was a new government accounting system, NGAS, and so basically this was our basis, Mr. President, plus the memorandum circular.
Yes.
So in the past, I think the executive secretary issued executive orders, but recently they have been issuing memorandum circulars, Mr. President.
Yeah. All right. We would be happy to receive these documents after this hearing today. 1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session resumed.
Mr. President, under the COA circular cited by the good gentleman, it provides under 3.2 the following, quote, the NGO or PO accredited by the government office shall, in effect, to be a recipient of government funds, they must be accredited by a government office. May we know if FISCOG was accredited?
Mr. President, we consulted the COA about that because the FISGOC is a sui generis. It's not a NGO envisioned under the circular where you have a track record and been existing for X number of years.
Yes.
It is alive during the games, then under the SEA Games rules, it will be put to bed after the games. So it is under the MC or Memorandum Circular 56 where COA and where we get our authority as the accredited organizing committee. So the same thing, Mr. President, with
So the
91 and 2005.
right. The accreditation was given by the Philippine Sports Commission.
The accreditation was given by the Office of the President through the signature by authority of the President of the Executive Secretary, then to implement the MC, a tripartite MOA between the POC, PSC, and FISCOC, Mr. President.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's, I think, we have asked the questions that we want to ask. There are matters which rest with the COA audit. After this, we don't want to spend time anymore on that. This is a budget hearing, so we would be relying on COA for post-audit after this. And insofar as we are concerned, this representation is concerned, we no longer have further questions on the spirit of interpellation on the PSC budget. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may I take this occasion to invite the Senate to the opening ceremonies on November 30. One of your members, the Honorable Senator Manny Pacquiao, will play a special role on that. But actually, the games will already be starting on this Sunday, Polo sa Calatagan. That's why I'd like to thank the Minority Leader for asking all the questions today so that we can free the minds of the organizers and the athletes. We don't want them thinking that there's any anomalies or anything during this time. But we'll be more than happy to face any investigation or any inquiries after the games, Mr. President. Thank you to the Minority Leader.
Just to correct any misimpression, we never said that there were anomalies. We were asking
Thank you, Mr.
probing
President.
questions
Yes.
on how these public funds were being moved from one entity to the other and asking for the legal basis. But having said that, it's not only Senator Pacquiao who has a role in these games. As Senator Tolentino here is complaining that he has no fund for kickboxing, which he heads, and Senator Mig Subiri, he also, Arnis head is also pleading for funds for training. So it is not only Senator Pacquiao, Mr. Chairman.
Well, we win as one, Mr. President. So we'd like to thank again the Minority Leader. And we couldn't have the 24 senators for the specific, I cannot mention what Senator Pacquiao will be doing at that day. But definitely we wish that you would participate and watch the games. After all, you funded this through the 2019 budget. So again, we'd like to thank the Senate. And we will be delivering not only the tickets, but the official jackets next week.
We wish to our athletes the best, and we are fully behind them. We wish them success for our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Minority Leader. I have one question for the sponsors, Senator Go, for the PSC budget. For the 2020 budget, is there enough budget for the Philippine Bowling Federation?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, very good. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, there being no other member who wishes to, pare, okay ka na? Paul, okay ka na? The ladies first, or shall we do?
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just wanted to leave my colleagues with this picture in their mind. You know, when I went there, on a couple of occasions, one time I was with the national track team. They were crying when they stepped on the turf. Kasi sabi nila, nagte-training sila sa, hindi ko anong probinsya. They're not even training in Metro Manila because they have no decent track to train on. Anong probinsya yun? Pangasinan. They train in Pangasinan. In some, I don't really know the condition of the track either. Now, I don't even train regularly anymore, but when I stepped on that track, ibang klase, parang kang lumulutang. And sabi ko, here are these athletes, this is their job, this is their life. And ngayon lang sila nakatikim ng ganun. So it really felt so good to be able to see in their face, to see in their smiles, to see in their actions that they were full of joy to be able to do this. And something that I found very interesting was that in the years to come, in the decades to come, they don't have to travel abroad to qualify for other international events because we can host those events now. For now, we don't host any events because we're not qualified to host any events. So not only do we not have these international events to encourage young people to see what athletic life is like, our athletes have to even go abroad just to qualify for another event. I also had the opportunity to see the swimmers. There have already been national swimming competitions in the pool. Again, just like the track, you have a 10-meter, 50-meter, 10-lane pool, and then there's another pool for warm-up that's 8 meters, also 50 meters long and 8 lanes. So it kind of looks excessive if you ask me, until you learn that that is the requirement to be a certified Class 1 sports facility. Ganun talaga if we want to not just host the events, but treat our athletes like the heroes we say they are, but we don't treat them as such. So on that note, one last question. Well, I think ako yung last. I think magko-congratulate na lang si Senator Tol. Because I actually have my own friends who are athletes, I also get asked, is it excessive? Is it overpriced? So I'm not asking this question because my brother is the Speaker of the House, but it's a question I want to hear the answer to so that I can also explain to my friends, to my constituents, to my athletes' friends, and the athletes that I feel I represent. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much for the opportunity to answer the question of my younger sister. As I said, to the question of the Honorable Senator Drilon and to the media reports that have been going around, it's a huge amount of money. We're not denying that malaking pera ito. But number one, our athletes have been pleading with us ever since DepEd was split into three, CHED, TESDA, DepEd, no, nawala yung sports, napunta sa Philippine Sports Commission. So although may konting pera ang Philippine Sports Commission from PAGCOR, the reality is they have to split it 50% sa grassroots and 50% sa elite. And I think we're spending less than 100, 150 pesos per school child pagdating sa sports. So we have to inspire them. So it was a conscious decision to build this in Clark. It's part of the whole complex of the new Clark City. It will enhance the value of new Clark City, which is 30,000. The new Clark City, I think, is 9,000 hectares, but the 30,000 hectares is all owned by government. So even the number of flights have increased, businesses have been coming in. So let me assure the Senate that hindi magiging white elephant ito. In fact, BCDA has been getting inquiries by, I think, American or European teams if they can train already there for the Olympics. Because the countries with harsh winters look for countries where they can have a better climate, or in this case, also acclimatized, because Japan in July is similar than to the Philippines from January to May. So for professional baseball teams, professional basketball teams, outside New Clark City, I think Clark has 4 to 6 baseball fields. They have 4 to 6, I'm not that sure, football fields. There's 5 hectares already provided for the National High School for Sports, or the National Academy for Sports, which I think is being sponsored by Senator Go here in the Senate, and my sister has also been pushing for that. So just to say, is it excessive? Well, if we compare Singapore, it's 15 billion. Compare Malaysia, 7 billion. And precisely, we want to put on a good show. So if you ask me, not as Speaker of the House, but as someone who loves sports, we should actually spend this much regionally. We should, and especially in the Visayas, that Visayas is composed of many islands. Buti pa sa Luzon at saka sa Mindanao, when the railways are up and the highways interconnect, it's easy to go to the sports complex. But in Visayas, if you're from Iloilo, you're from Samar, Leyte, Cebu, Bohol, Antique, it's so difficult to spend on this. So actually, the 150 maintenance shared by BCDA President, if you compute how much our athletes are spending to train in Class A facilities abroad, it will be cheaper for them to go to New Clark City and train there. So maybe to answer your question and the other questions of this honorable body, we'll submit to you a full study after the games, because we're actually studying that. Because if it works in New Clark City, in Central Luzon, Tarlac, and Pampanga, we would like to propose that this setup be done regionally. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Senator Tolentino.
Just a short manifestation, congratulating in advance the tripartite undertaking of the Philippine Sports Commission, the PSGOC, the Philippine Olympic Committee, for this Herculean undertaking of organizing and putting forward the best face of the Philippines in the days ahead. Hindi ko na po siguro itatanong, Mr. President, kung ilang gold medals ang makukuha. Mamaya tatanungin ko na lang yung Department of Tourism kung anong naiambag nila para sa sports tourism. But again, Mr. President, just like what I manifested a few days ago, we have to showcase not just hospitality, but the unity of our country through sports, through Southeast Asian Games. And I'd like to congratulate Speaker Cayetano and the Senate Minority Floor Leader for helping us clarify and elucidate all matters that probably will linger on even before and after the games. So maraming salamat po, Mr. President. Sana po mabigay na yung mga tickets ni Senator Joel Villanueva in advance, lalo na sa basketball. And congratulations to Team Philippines.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Before we do the privileged motion on approving their budget, Mr. President, I would just like to also put on record my congratulations to the Holy Trinity of sports in the Philippines. Hindi ko lang kung sino si Father God, si Father Jesus, and si Holy Spirit, but the triumvirate of PSGOC, POC, and Philippine Sports Commission. Mr. President, they did a yeoman's job in taking this on 18 months, no, maybe 20 months ago. And in 20 months, we could see those facilities are truly world-class. Nakakatayo ng balahibo ng buhok, Mr. President, when you visit the place. It's an amazing sight to see. And our children are all proud. No? The kids are all proud of this facility. Sana lang hindi po masayang po yung facility na yan. We're hoping that the PSC, through MOA with maybe later on with the BCDA, can make that the permanent home of our professional elite athletes. Mr. President. Also, we wish the team well. My only regret is that I won't be in your opening dinner because nasa December 1 po yung opening dinner ninyo. I know the opening night is November 30, but the opening dinner is December 1. We're in the thick of the fight. We're for 8 medals that day in Arnis. So hopefully we can deliver. I just hope my POC president is telling me how many I need to deliver. The pressure is on. But we will do our best, sir. We'll do our best, gentlemen. With that, Mr. President, I'm honored to move that the budget of the Philippine Sports Commission and all its agencies be deemed submitted and approved. And we win as one, Mr. President, with that. I so move.
Any objection? Chair hears none. The budget of the Philippine Sports Commission is hereby deemed submitted.
May I ask for a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President?
Session suspended.
Wait ka.